Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to talk about something other than CSCS. I've been posting a lot of CSCS videos out there because when I was studying for the exam, I found them really helpful. So I was hoping that I can help someone else study for the exam. So if you found it helpful and if you watched it, I'm really glad. But today we're going to talk about something different because it kind of got boring. So I'll get back to that probably next week. But today I'm going to talk about 5 best books I've read this year so far. So the first book that I want to talk about today is called Rich Dad, Poor Dad. You probably have heard of this book. It's a classic personal finance book that was written a long time ago, but I personally think that a lot of the concepts that are shared in this book and a lot of the principles that he believes in still remain the same to this day. One of my favorite things about this book was that it wasn't all about defining and explaining the hard definitions and hard concepts of personal finance. It was a lot of anecdotal stories that the author was able to observe growing up with his rich dad and his poor dad, and the differences that he noticed in their mindsets and their behaviors, and how that eventually led to this wealth gap between the two dads. The main takeaway from this book, I would say, is if you have the courage to pave your own path, and if you have the discipline to learn financial and be financially literate, you can become wealthy. But if I'm being honest, after reading this book, it's not like, oh man, I have all the answers and I know what to do now. It was more about knowing the differences, and like I said, the observations that he made really helped me understand the bigger picture and why the rich gets richer and the poor gets poorer. And just to add one more thing, although I don't have money to invest in real estate, for example, I found the things that he talks about in this book very relatable because it is about the mindset and the behaviors, and you don't need 500k in the bank to adopt a mindset or a behavior if you decide that it's worth it. And so for me, it was very relatable and I liked it a lot. Okay, so this next book is called The Subtle Art of Not Giving a F. You also might have heard of this book. Just reading this book itself was very therapeutic to me. You might think just from looking at the cover that it's about stoicism, another book about stoicism and how to be indifferent to things, but it's actually the opposite of that. The author talks about the fact that we need to prioritize things in order to not give a F about things that don't really matter to us. And so that really hit me hard because I feel like I think we all do, we spend unnecessary energy and emotions on things that really don't matter at the end of the day because we don't know how to give a F about things that do matter. And another chapter that I really enjoyed reading in this book is about how we should all be responsible for our situations, even if it's not our fault that we ended up being in that situation. And that is step number 1 to solving a problem. That kind of reminds me also, solving a problem is the whole purpose that we find meaningful in life, not having problems in the first place. So it's okay to have problems, and that's where we find our meaning at the end of the day. So we shouldn't, it shouldn't be our goal to reach for not having problems, but to find meaning in solving those problems. Yeah, so it's a great book if you feel like you're kind of lost in direction, or even if you're not feeling that way. I really enjoyed it, so make sure you check it out. Okay, so this next book is called The Psychology of Money, Morgan Housel. So you know how with Rich Dad, Poor Dad, I talked about how I really enjoyed learning about mindsets and behaviors of the wealthy versus the poor. This book is all about that. They talk a lot about case studies with different people and how their decision making eventually led to how much money they made. I agree with this author here when he talks about in the book that we like to make financial decisions based on our personal history and how much we are willing to take risks, as opposed to based on strict numbers and graphs. And that's the way we like to think of things. But the author, straight up from the first chapter, says there's no right or wrong decisions you can make with finance, because all our decisions are based on our personal history and our perspective of how we see things in our life. Yeah, and also a lot of different examples and concepts. If you're into investing, whether that be real estate, stock market, whatever it may be, you'll enjoy this book, because this book talks a lot about the compounding effect, how the wealth builds up over the years in investing, but also about how the tail ends drive everything. So you can have million failures, but if one success at the tail end really does well, then you can be successful in terms of making a lot of money. And so there's a lot of good concepts here that I found very interesting. A lot of good examples, so highly recommend. Okay, so this next book is called Start With Why. A really good book as well. Very inspirational. If I'm being honest, I found some of the things very repetitive as we got closer to the end of the book, but that's okay. It was still a good book. The book talks about our why, so why we do things and why companies are made in the first place matters much more than what we do or what the companies sell, or how we do things, or how the companies handle customer service or reach their clients. And when that why, how, and what aligns, we can inspire people to do things even if that's inconvenient to them, as opposed to motivating people and making them buy your stuff with promotional events. So a huge difference between inspiration and motivation. That's what this book mainly talks about. And yeah, the book talks a lot about marketing strategies, and having your own company definitely would have made it more relatable to me. But I think we all own our own brands. Like you watching this video, you're your brand, and so I think the more you get to know how to sell yourself, whatever your profession may be. Me, I'm a PT. I think that's a good tool for you, and knowing how to sell yourself is important. Okay, so this very last book that I want to talk about is written by Viktor Frankl. It's the book is called Man's Search for Meaning. He was a prisoner in Nazi concentration camps, I think 4 of them. So the first half of the book is about his experience and the observations that he made, and how our search for meaning defines our attitude. The book gets very philosophical in the second half of the book. I like the first half better, because this author, he was really good at explaining his thoughts, but also even better at observing other people, and why he thought that they do things. So it was really cool to see the historical event through his lens and through his perspective. And yeah, this book is about the attitude that we have in our life, and what we find meaningful in our life basically defines our life. And so I really like this book a lot. Make sure you check it out if you get a chance. Yeah, that's it for today. Today was a long day for me. I just came back from the hospital from my full-time clinical rotations, like 7:30, 8 to 4:30 every day. So it's been a long day, but I'm glad I got a chance to talk about these books that I read. If you guys get a chance to read these books, please let me know in the comments down below, and let's talk about them. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next week.